Winning cures everything. Now for your hosts, Gary and Chris.
Good morning, everybody. It's Winning Cures Everything, Wednesday, January 27th edition of the show. I'm Gary.
And I'm Chris.
And we have got massive news. Massive news this morning. And we will get into it, of course. But before we do, you know we got to give you the rundown. WinningCuresEverything.com has got everything you need to know. If you ever miss a live show, you can get it on the podcast, any of your favorite podcast apps. We will be moving to a more podcast exclusive format soon enough. So make sure that you are subscribed over at Apple Podcasts, whatever your favorite podcast app is, Spotify, Google Podcast, TuneIn, whatever it is, right? iHeartRadio, all that good stuff. We're on all of them. So go and make sure you are subscribed. Leave a nice 5-star written review. We would certainly appreciate that. Along with that, all of our college football gambling content is over at sbrpicks.com/NCAAF, and we do a YouTube show over there. And it's once a week right now, but we tend to do, a few more here and there. We'll be tossing some stuff out. The FCS season begins on February 13th, I think is the first game. Now, it's a one-off. It's like the week 0 thing, and then, of course, you start in the next week. But yeah, we got FCS stuff coming up. We'll be talking about those. We'll be talking about all the different stuff that goes on in the college football offseason. I believe we're going to have Josh Pate on with us next week. Chris, I had not told you that, but I talked to him this morning. He's handling recruiting stuff and whatnot. Sorry, not next week, but the week after that. So we'll have him after all the recruiting mess because he is with 247 Sports. So they're going to be super slammed next week. But we'll get to talk to him about some of that stuff that goes on. Let's go ahead and dive in. Oh, YouTube, search out SBR Picks. That's where you can find the channel. Biggest news of last night, this morning, we'll go ahead and tell you, Alabama swept Kentucky in college basketball. That is not the biggest news. Kentucky sucks this year. They're terrible. I do want to go ahead and open with that, though. Chris, and we won't spend long on this, but the difference between being an Alabama basketball fan and an Alabama football fan is so it's contrarian. It's two completely opposite spectrums. Because even when Alabama is doing well, as they are this year, they're 14-3, they're ranked in the top 10 in the AP and the coaches poll. Everybody thinks they're going to do great. Brown Yeti jumps in and said, add it early today. Yeah, we went live. We were thinking about just recording this and doing it later or showing it later. But, yeah, you know what, breaking news, all that kind of stuff, we're, of course, going to jump in. But the difference between being an Alabama football fan and a basketball fan is in football, I kind of expect Alabama to win all the time. In basketball, I expect the sky to drop at any point. I don't know how to fix my feelings about this because I've seen this basketball team do this over and over and over again. They have now won 10 straight games. I don't know what to make of this, right? Like, I'm enjoying it, obviously, but I also feel like, okay, like this next game is when it's going to fall and everything's going to completely, like, we're 14-3 right now. We're probably going to end up like 14-8 before we get another win, which is ridiculous. But how do you fix that issue? Do you have any idea?
No, I mean, it's just
it's a mindset. Like, I can't get out of it.
I think time fixes it. I mean, do you become a program that wins all the time, or is this just a thing where this is a weird year and, Alabama's handling the COVID stuff really well and other teams aren't, and so therefore you're beating teams you normally just wouldn't beat.
Yeah, that might be part of it. Joseph jumps in. Wow, morning show, no fear with no coffee. Yeah, no, I got my coffee. I am prepped, my friend. Matthew Miller said SEC is god-awful in basketball. Yeah, no, I mean, the net rankings would say differently, but Alabama
all those net rankings are skewed. They're all bullshit.
Yes, I mean, Colgate is number 13 in the net. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So Alabama is 3 up in the loss column, and I don't know what to do with myself because, I mean, this has not happened since I was a wee child. I mean, I was 5 years old the last time Alabama started off 9-0 in the conference. So, it's that's been, 33 years? I mean, that's just absurd. So, Either way, enough about that because I'm sure nobody wants to hear about my issues with being a fan. Tennessee decides to give us a little extra this morning, and they go and they hire Josh Heupel, the Central Florida head football coach. And I got to tell you, we talked about the fact that Danny White on the SBR show and on our own show, Danny White would come up with a name that we were not talking about, and it would happen quickly. And I don't know that any of us ever believed that he would bring the coach from Central Florida that is kind of trending downward and bring him up to Knoxville. Now, part of this could be because who knows who, like, I know that they reached out to a lot of people. Michael Fritz jumped in and said, good morning, fellas. Good morning. Good morning for everybody that's jumping in. He's on Twitch. There's a lot on YouTube, Facebook, etc. So if you guys want to jump into the chat box, it'll populate right there in the left-hand corner this morning. But, yeah, the Josh Heupel thing could be because Tennessee has no idea what the NCAA is going to do. So maybe some of the better names didn't want to take that risk of jumping in there, especially when you have to play Georgia, Florida, Alabama, et cetera, every single year. They may not have wanted to jump in there if they don't know exactly what the NCAA is going to do. So could this be kind of a filler hire? They give Heupel, like a 4-year contract, something like that, and this is like their gap coach, right? Like their gap coach could have been Kevin Steele, and everybody would have just laughed, and, they're going to be terrible for a while. At least Heupel brings with him a certain level of offense that you can expect it to be fun. You can expect them to score, all that kind of stuff. It may work out fantastically, but it has not gone in the right direction at UCF. His first year, they went 12-1 with all of Scott Frost's bunch. I mean, he's still playing with a bunch of Scott Frost players, but you got 12-1, and then last year you go to 10-3, but all three of the losses were one-possession losses. I mean, we're talking field goal games, coin flips, basically. And then this year, they go 6-4. They get blasted by BYU. They get beat up pretty good by Tulsa. They lost a one-pointer against Memphis. They lost by 3, and they had to score a late touchdown just to get it to that margin against Cincinnati. But they put up a ton of points, and they were fun, and they were exciting, and there was, a reason for optimism, I guess. Give me your thoughts here before we dive further into the hilarity of it.
So I like Heupel, okay? And I've always liked Heupel, and you've kind of always poo-pooed him, and that's fine. We see this differently. I think this is a really good hire. He wasn't on a name that I was thinking of or even considered at all, but I think he's a really good hire. For what Tennessee's going through, I think he's a home run hire, by the way, all right? So, that's that. I don't know any other way to spread it or to mitigate it. Getting beat by Cincinnati and by BYU is nothing to sneeze at all.
Agreed.
Okay. So the Tulsa loss is a little concerning, but Tulsa's just kind of had their number lately. All right.
Yeah.
That's
and Tulsa was good this year.
Yeah, Tulsa was really good this year.
None of these were bad losses.
And then Memphis and them just kind of go back and forth every couple of years.
Yep.
And that's just the way that's also become a rivalry. All right. So you can explain all these things away. I do not see him as a downward trending coach. I never have, no matter how the record has gone. That's irrelevant to me. Okay. The extra loss because of the bowl loss is simply who they got matched up against in the bowl game. Okay.
Yep.
I mean, they could have gotten matched up against 30 to 40 other teams that I think they would have beaten, by the way.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Matt Miller jumps in. He said Tennessee's a second-tier job. Normally, with what they're about to go through, they're probably low second-tier, high third. So Tennessee took UCF's AD and coach. Akbar jumps in, said, what's up, guys? And then the Brown Yeti said trending down. He said, I think the G5 is trending up, especially the Southern schools. And that's fair. That's absolutely fair.
100%. And this is to all of the people that run college football, by the way. Listen, you all spend all year telling us that the G5 don't belong, okay, and the P5 matter. Go ask everybody across the country what's a better job if the money was the same. You got to make the money the same. If all the coaches were making the same amount of money, is Tennessee right now a better job than Central Florida? Because I think not. I think you had to double White's pay to get White to leave Central Florida. I think they're going to substantially increase, if not double, Heupel's pay to get Heupel to come. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then right now, there's a lot of people that believe that UCF is going to land a better coach than Tennessee had an opportunity to get. Why? Because it's a better job. If all things are equal, all things aren't equal. SEC TV money has just made things stupid, and therefore the SEC jobs are better. But the fact that it's even a conversation as to what job is better needs to tell everybody, stop with these teams belong and these teams don't. It has to end. We have to end that conversation, and we have to end it now.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It is on its surface. It
also,
is
by the way, people bringing up sanctions because you brought up sanctions, you're assuming a lot here, okay?
Oh,
I don't
agreed.
think the NCAA is coming in with sanctions at all, by the way.
Well, but,
I actually think the NCAA is going to spend zero time investigating this.
And they might, but who knows? At this point, would you risk your career on that? And I don't know.
Because if they do, they're going to do it in 4 or 5 years. And so if I've turned Tennessee around, I could parlay that into a bigger job also. Or I'm not worried about the NCAA sanctions when they come down.
See, I don't know if I agree with that.
You think the NCAA is going to move quickly?
I don't know that they're going to move quickly. I just
don't
know.
They have an FBI tape from 3.5 years ago on LSU. Coach openly telling they're going to pay a guy. And the NCAA has moved 0 on that case. What are you talking about? You think they're going to move fast?
They decide when they want to move fast and when they don't. I don't know what they've got.
If Heupel comes in and beats Bama twice, you're damn sure they're going to move fast.
I am not worried about that. I disagree with.
I know you aren't.
Well, I think there's a reason why they had to go get Heupel. Like that's I don't think that
Heupel's a good hire. I don't know when you said they had to go get Heupel.
I think they knew they could get Heupel anytime they wanted. I think that they had
when you can double someone's
options.
Pay, you absolutely can get them anytime they want.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that they reached out to other candidates. They went after PJ Fleck. They went after James Franklin. They went after all these other guys, and nobody was biting. And that's why they ended up with Heupel, because they could have gotten him. We didn't even
talk about this the other day. Why on earth would Franklin have taken that job? Who on earth thinks that Tennessee's a better job than Penn State?
Okay, here let me explain in this way. They went 3-5 this year, and once you lose a fan base, even just a little bit, he hasn't
lost a fan base. They kept their last coach for 40-something years.
Let me finish. Look, once people lose that beginning faith in you, and they think that you don't have it turned around or that something's going to go bad, the next time that you have a bad season will be the last one. So that's
we'll see.
We'll see. But,
we'll see, because that's a fan base that's not used to turning over coaches, by the way.
Oh, agreed.
So we'll see. They lose them because they die or because they go to the NFL. So I disagree with you that in a weird-ass COVID year where he had a shitload of opt-outs, some of those guys are going to be top 5 NFL draft picks, that they're going to hold this 3 and whatever season against him.
And we shall see. But that is the only reason I'm putting that up as a reasoning why he might have looked at it. Like I don't think
going to go there.
There's no reason for him to take it
to a school that would fire their coach every 3 years. That makes a lot of sense.
They were going to have to pay him stupid money to get him out of there anyway. Like he's already making $7 million at Penn State.
Yeah,
they bumped that thing up to 10, and they just make it like guaranteed over 4 or 5 years.
That hire never made sense to me at all.
I agree with that part. I don't know why they would. Like. Matt Miller said Heupel will be Butch Jones 75-8-4, and that'll be his high point. We'll see. I mean, if you have a good offense, you can win. There's all sorts of crazy stuff that can happen, but so long as you can actually get the offense clicking, and that's been Tennessee's problem. They made a smart decision here by going with somebody that understands that side of the ball. Now, what I'm curious about is, do they keep Kevin Steele on staff? Is he going to be Heupel's defensive coordinator? And I kind of like the pairing of the two.
I don't know. I don't know that Steele's defenses are very good. I think he needs to bring in a coordinator that knows how to recruit or be a much better scheme guy. But,
do you not think Steele's defenses were good at Auburn?
I think they were good because they had elite personnel, but Steele didn't recruit those personnel.
Right, but you can still bring in position coaches to be able to recruit. You can bring in a recruiting coordinator and whatnot.
I think Steele's fine.
Yeah.
I think there are much better guys available, but Steele's fine.
I think I agree with that. I think there are better guys that you can go get. I am curious if you run into some of the same problems. But I mean, these assistant coaches run on 2 and 3 year contracts.
Yeah, I was going to say their contracts are much smaller.
So,
but like I said, anybody worried about sanctions is a fool right now. Okay, the head coach probably should legitimately think about it. Nobody else should.
Yeah, no, assistant coaches.
Because I'm telling you, you're talking 5 years a minimum before the NCAA does anything.
If you are a good position coach or a good coordinator, you're going to have job opportunities.
You're going to have a job offer if you want to leave. That's fine.
Have you ever thought about how crazy it is to be like if you were an assistant coach and your wife just had to pick up and move everything like every 2 years? Like, how insane is that life? I mean, you're just moving across the country. Like,
that's fine as long as the money's right.
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
fine.
Yeah, no,
that's why. Why do you think they pay traveling nurses what they pay them?
Oh yeah, no, it's
a
crazy
couple
money.
$100,000 a year, sure.
Yeah,
I'll pack my shit and leave.
Never get to sit down and settle them roots or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy stuff. There's a reason why the Mark Few's of the world and the Chris Petersons of the world and all that. That's why they are so different, right?
Yep.
But it is what it is. I mean, there's a whole slew of people that would prefer to just pack up and head on to the next job. So the Heupel thing, I do think is a bit hilarious that Tennessee bought out $6 million of the UCF athletic department. They hired the AD. The AD does a national search. It vets a bunch of candidates. They're flying up. People are checking out plane trackers and all that kind of stuff all over creation. And then they end up on a Wednesday morning, less than a week after they hire Danny White. And Danny White has hired the guy that he already hired 3 years ago at UCF. So I do think that there is a possibility of it working because we know that his offenses work. We know that
you act like $6 million in a buyout's a lot.
I think it is for a G5 coach and for an AD.
We disagree there.
So, I mean, that's typically those kind of buyouts are.
If the coach is the right guy, does it matter?
No. Not in the slightest. Okay. Not in the slightest. So long as they get it right, then there's no amount of money.
Save $12 million not paying Pruitt. So,
I mean, they're still going to pay him some. So my guess is they'll probably pay Pruitt about $6 million, and then you bought out, White and Heupel for $6 million. So you're still paying the $12 million, but at least you got your new guy in and you got Pruitt out. So I think it makes sense. I mean, there's definitely hope, but I will tell you this: Tennessee fans on the message boards and on Twitter and whatnot this morning, they are not happy with this hire at all.
They can go blow themselves, okay? All right?
Yeah.
Because they were thrilled with the last guy and ran out a guy that I stood behind, and I said that guy is better, and what you're doing to his character and trying to do to his career is criminal. So,
yeah,
they can go fuck themselves.
Brown Yeti said, I don't care who the DC is, just stop trying to steal Zach from State. Hey, Zach Arnett's a good defensive coordinator, man. Like in Texas, Texas talked about him, and LSU
State's probably going to lose him at some point in time because these other schools pay a lot more than Mississippi State.
Yeah,
unless Mississippi State gets the same TV money they do.
Yep,
just jack that check up.
Well, it depends on whether or not he wants to go and try and win a national championship, right?
But it doesn't matter. But at some point in time, these other schools are paying $2 and $3 million for coordinators, and State's not close to that. So,
yep, you are correct.
If you want to compete with the big boys, write the check. You got the money. You got the same TV money that the SEC got. Everybody else got.
Michael said nothing better than to go fuck yourself to start the day. Matt Miller said they probably would beg for Schiano now.
They should.
Matt also said Pruitt for DC. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think he's still a good DC, but
he's fine. He'll get on somewhere and he'll do a real good job.
William Ledbetter said, I don't understand why we're hating on him. He hasn't even coached a game yet for the Vols. Here's the thing. We're not hating on him. I think he is a perfectly.
I think it's a great hire.
I think he's a perfectly reasonable candidate. But I do not believe that there was anybody that thought that this was the direction that they were going to go. Like, if that had been number one, and you had been able to sell it, and he wasn't coming off of a 6-4 year and all that, like, obviously there'd be more. I wonder what the difference between a Josh Heupel and a Jamie Chadwell, like what the reaction would have been between those two. Like Jamie Chadwell.
You know what's funny though, is as much as I love Chadwell and we're in the tank for him, he's done this 1 year.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Heupel's, we've got several years of competency from Heupel. We've got one from Chadwell. I will tell you that was my concern with the head coach for Indiana. You know, he has turned that thing around and he looked really good in a weird ass COVID year. I don't want to overreact to anything good or bad that happened in the COVID year. Okay. If a team played awful that normally plays great, I'm not judging them for that. If a team played amazing that I've never heard of before or never expected them to be amazing, I'm not judging them for that. Like I'm not giving anybody raises. I'm not going and hiring that coach that looks like he, you know, struck the stars in a weird ass COVID year. I'm just not.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. Brown Yeti said, I would write the check, Chris, but I don't have that power. Jim John said, my UCF Knights are in trouble. I don't know about that.
You're going to hire a good hire.
Yeah, you're going to hire a great coach because it's a great job.
You know who I would go get if I was them?
I'm really
a guy who's just unbelievable at the G5 level and in that conference and knows that conference. I would go get Herman.
That's not a terrible idea.
I would go get Herman. Texas, he knows Texas. If you know how to recruit in Texas, you can recruit in Florida. And guess what? The guys in Florida are better than the guys in Texas. That's just the truth.
It is true.
That's just the truth. There's a reason there's only a couple of good schools in the state of Texas, and every swinging dick in Florida has great athletes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can get everybody.
And the entire SEC and half the ACC makes up their rosters from Florida.
Well, and Indiana, that's partly why Tom Allen was able to turn around Indiana because he's got a pipeline into Florida. So
that's right.
You know, it is what it is. There's just athletes falling off trees in Florida, man.
And I'm gonna tell you that's who I would go. That would be the first name that I called. If they made me AD, I would fly down there and I would say get Herman on the phone.
That's a really, really good idea. I had not even thought of it this morning. I was going to let the Tennessee dust settle.
No. Do you want to go be somebody like Jim Harbaugh or some, you know, prick coaches OC and try to make them a lot of money and hope that you can get a second chance at life, or do you just want to run your own show again where we at a level where we know you can run it?
The only terrifying thing about that is, well, no, it's no different. Like you obviously know how to run not a franchise. You know how to run a football program.
Yeah, he knows how to run a program.
So, and what he did at Texas this year was not bad. I mean, their 3 losses were really, really close. I mean, we're talking coming down to last second, you know, overtime, field goals, that kind of stuff.
What he did at Houston to get the Texas job, nobody else has done. So,
like, think about this: had they not fumbled on the goal line against TCU. And had they actually ran competent plays in the red zone against Iowa State, they're in the Big 10 or Big 12 championship game, and they're vying for a playoff spot. Like, I mean, that's how crazy it is. If they go for 2 against Oklahoma instead of going to 4 overtimes,
that's right.
You know, and there's all sorts of stuff that could have happened there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a world where they ran the table this year. So I think Herman's a really good hire still.
I think so too. Michael said, "Who's on the hat?" And then he said, "Never mind, it's Bama. Looks different." Yeah, it's the throwback, old school, like early '90s logo. Brown Yeti said, "Florida's 48% athletes, 48% crackheads, and 2% normal people." I think that's a fair assessment. Probably so. So we are not making fun of the hire. We are laughing at the hilarity of the situation because. Or at least I am. I do agree with Chris. I do think it's a pretty good hire, especially for the situation right now. But I know for a fact that Tennessee fans did not want to bring, like, they were happy with bringing UCF's AD. They are not happy with bringing UCF's coach.
They need to change their tune. They need to change their expectations, and they need to shut the hell up and let somebody do a job.
Matt Miller said, "You're wrong about Florida and Texas. Look at Bama's and Ohio State's roster. More great Texas players than Florida." Agree with Herman, though. There are some great players in Texas.
There's a ton of great players in Texas. That outside of Florida, there aren't as many great. They have a few top tier great guys that all lead the state. And then the rest of them are a lot of really good 4-stars that are really good. That's fine.
And even
Texas
the 3
is
stars
also
in Texas,
like 5 times bigger than Florida, by the way.
This is true. This is true. And Florida still has a ton of D1 athletes, and even their 2 and 3 stars are burners, and they are that's why UCF does what they do. It's not because they go out and get a bunch of 4 stars and 5 stars. No, they take the 3 stars and they are able to develop them. And we'll see what UCF does. I'm curious about that. I'm much more curious about that one now. But yeah, so we shall see. But he said he does agree with Herman though. So yeah, I think that'd be a home run hire for UCF. Home run. You just got to hope that it doesn't turn into what Charlie Strong in South Florida turned into, right? Like it really good first year, and then
that program's just so much better than South Florida's.
I think it is too. So we shall see. All right, next topic on the board, and we are going to discuss the Baseball Hall of Fame. Chris, they elected nobody to the Hall. Give me your thoughts here.
Well, this is the 4th time in history that they've done that, so it's not unprecedented.
It's not unprecedented.
The Baseball Hall of Fame is done differently than the other major Hall of Fames. It is literally the writers get a ballot, and they can pick up to 10 players, but they don't have to pick anybody. You have to get 75% of the writers to vote for you in to get you in. Nobody got 75%. I think the closest was Curt Schilling at 71.6%.
That is correct.
So, I'm not a big fan of the Baseball Writers Hall of Fame. I know a lot of journalists that I have followed over the years, and these are all old guys that have been journalists longer than I've been alive, all respect it more than any other Hall of Fame because for the simple matter that they have more great players in, and they don't let the really, really, really good in. They pretty much only try to get the great in, and so it's a lot harder to get in. But I think there's a lot of arrogance and a lot of egotism. Some guys that are left off and got almost no respect whatsoever was Jeff Kent. Jeff Kent has more home runs than any second baseman in the history of the game, but Jeff Kent was an asshole, and the media guys don't like him. And like that's the part that I can't get around is you vote people in not on their greatness or level of play, but on who was your buddy and who was your friend. And that's why it loses credibility with me. You don't want to leave the steroid guys in. I'm okay with you making a statement about that. There's a part of me that disagrees with it, but
at some point you got to let that go because that is what baseball was for an entire era. Bud Selig didn't even test for steroids.
No, it wasn't against the rules, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it was still cheating.
But Selig is in the Hall of Fame because he made baseball relevant again by allowing that to happen. And now, of course, Barry Bonds never failed to test, never like none of that stuff, and yet. Barry Bonds to me was a Hall of Famer before the steroids, and
hang on. He wasn't though. That's something a lot of people say. Look at his numbers; they were great. They were really, really good, but they were short-term good. They were like 6-7 years good. That does not make a Hall of Fame career.
That's looking on the offensive side, though. Like looking at his defensive numbers, man.
I'm talking about his game, Gary. I'm telling you, Barry Bonds was a very good player, very, very good player before he ballooned up. He was not, and had he kept at that rate for 10 more years, he probably would have been a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But in those 5 or 6 years, no, he that's just not long enough career at that level of play. Had he gotten hit by a bus and didn't play anymore after that, instead of ballooning up, he wouldn't have made it in the Hall of Fame. People say that all the time, but that's just not true.
Okay.
It's just not.
Okay.
There are guys with if you cut his career off from before his head got gigantic, then I'm telling you, his numbers were very, very good. A couple of unbelievable seasons in there. A couple of unbelievable seasons does not make the Hall of Fame, or else the Hall of Fame would have a shitload more people in.
That's true. That is true. Let's see, Jim John, going back to the UCF thing, he said UCF fans want Jeff Lebby who is Ole Miss's offensive coordinator right now. He was the OC under Heupel for the first 2 seasons. Michael Fritsch said they're a bunch of snobs. I think Bonds was in the 70s as well. They were fine with the steroid era when it benefited baseball. Now they act that they are better than them. And I got to tell you, there is not a more pretentious group of pricks, maybe in any sport, than baseball writers. It's insane to me the way that this is done. People have had an issue with this for, we're going on decades at this point. It is always an issue.
And the issue with Schilling is totally different than the issue with Pete Rose and with the issue with the steroid guys.
Yeah.
It's during his playing time, everybody was fine with him and everybody agrees he has a Hall of Fame career. When he's done playing and social media becomes invented, which it was very, very limited when he was playing, people see him as an asshole and not just a conservative, but a pretty staunch conservative who likes to go after people. Okay. And because he's so unlikable, because he's so disdainful on social media, now people are going to leave him out of the Hall of Fame. I just think that's insane. Like, who the hell are you to be the gatekeepers of this?
I agree.
It's about the game. It's about the game.
Yeah.
Look at the people in from the previous eras. Man, you got some of the worst people known to man that are in the Hall of Fame, just as human beings. They're just gross, disgusting, horrible people. But we don't judge them on their character. We judge them on what they've done in the game. Yeah. And Curt Schilling changed the game. He took a middling, lower level, lower tier, what are they called? Like new franchise. And he won a World Series with them. He brought them to the World Series. He carried Randy Johnson's dead ass on his back to get him a ring. Okay.
Yep. You are correct.
And then he goes to Boston, a mecca of baseball, a place that hasn't won in 80 some odd years. And he gives everything he has some of the most heroic starts in the history of the game. And that's not good enough. That's not good enough. Oh no, because he says mean things on social media, because he doesn't like gay people. Yeah. He's a prick for that. Okay. I don't know what to tell you, but at the end of the day, that has nothing to do with what he did on a baseball field.
On the other side of it, Roger Clemens was second. So Curt Schilling was 70% of the ballots. Roger Clemens, 61%. Barry Bonds, 60.7%. Omar Vizquel. Omar Vizquel, fourth. And he was 52.6%. Then you get down into the other ones. You had Scott Rowland, Billy Wagner, Gary Sheffield.
God. I swear to God, if Scott Rowland and Billy Wagner make it into the Hall of Fame, I'm going to lose my shit.
Gary, both of them are 35% and 31%. Gary Sheffield got 30%. He played.
That's a little insane.
He played
Gary
22.
Sheffield's better than both those guys.
Yeah, he played 22 years. His numbers are insane. Absolutely insane. Yeah. Manny Ramirez was number 9 with 28.2.
Manny will never get in.
Jeff Kent at number 10, Andrew Jones 11, Sammy Sosa at 12, and then you get down to like Andy Pettit and Bobby Abreu and all these other guys. So, it sucks.
Well, next year's Schilling's last year.
Yeah, that's Schilling doesn't want to be on the ballot. So
he doesn't have a say in that, by the way.
I know.
So that's irrelevant to him of what he wants. But next year is his last year to be on the ballot.
Same with Clemens and Barry Bonds. So they are both in their ninth season.
Right. For some reason, I thought those two retired after him. I guess not.
Sammy Sosa in his 9th. And then Jeff Kent is in his 8th. So it's going to be a little while. But I don't know that any of them get in next year. So more than likely,
there is a part of me that feels like Schilling will get in because he's not a steroid guy, and I think the writers like to do this. The reason he got to 70% this year is because he doesn't have to get that many more votes. These writers do this. They make you pay a penance. They make you serve 10 years of penalty, and then we'll finally let you in. And I think that's probably going to happen.
It's a crying shame. It's an absolute shame.
Yeah, because you take something that's going to be one of the most heroic days of your life and now you've made it spiteful, and you've made it mean, and you've made it hurt. And so many people say, well, look at the horrible things he says, like he deserves that. This has to do with his career. If you want to, go at him on Twitter, be my guest, knock yourself out. I don't give a shit. Okay. But hearing him talk about baseball, I want to hear him wax poetic about baseball. I want to hear him tell stories about baseball. But now, if and when he ever does any type of Hall of Fame entry speech, it will be on the terms of F you. It'll be TOS. It'll be screw you. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Yeah,
I think you're right.
I don't care. And that's shitty.
Michael said 1996 Bonds was in the 40-40 club. Yeah, I mean, he had really good offensive numbers.
No, 40-40 was amazing. But that one season doesn't put you in the – that's what I'm telling you, man. If you go back and look at his career before he left – before
2001 when he
was on roids before he left Pittsburgh. But if you go back and look at his career for his first 6 years, it was really, really good. But if you cut it off there, it ended. It doesn't matter anymore. That's just not enough.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm looking get to nearly the milestones you need to get to get in.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
There's a million guys with 300 home runs that aren't getting in because that's where he was at then. There's a ton of guys with the number of stolen bases and the defensive qualities that he had that never get in, that never get sniffed.
You might be right. Let's close out, and there was an article from Dan Wetzel in that bunch that discussed a very interesting topic, at least for us. Obviously, everybody knows that we are knee-deep in college football all the time, but just college athletics in general, we like to discuss the business behind the game, right? Dan Wetzel wrote an interesting piece over at Yahoo Sports that discusses the fact that Gen Xers and millennials have not been donating, or just aren't donating to, university athletic programs at nearly the same rate as the older guys. Chris, kind of walk me through this. If there's not money coming in from that bunch, once this old guard, passes on, college athletics is in trouble, right?
No, I don't think college athletics is in trouble because television money is so good.
Yeah, okay. but they need the television money.
But I'm going to tell you,
but they need the television money, and obviously, we've gone from 104 or 109 million subscribers on cable at its peak. We're down to
TV money
78
from other places other than subscribers, though, Gary.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just going to happen. The next, I guarantee you, the ESPN deal that the SEC made, it's got provisions in there to where if ESPN ever just stops being a cable channel, everything will be on streaming.
Okay.
So that's going to happen, and that's going to happen.
Well, yeah. So explain this to me. What does this mean with Gen Xers and
I'm going to tell you this as somebody who is. You and I right on the cusp of the Gen Xers don't want us, the millennials don't want us. We're in that little weird no man's land. I wouldn't give a hot damn dime to any of these schools. Okay. I graduated from Ole Miss. I grew up an LSU fan. If I hit the lottery tomorrow, if I'd have hit that $900 million of the Mega Millions last week, not 1 cent would have went to LSU. Not 1 cent. Why? Because they get $65 million a year. Okay.
Yeah.
From TV money, because they're now using my funds to build waterfalls and putt golfing games and DJ studios and all that bullshit for these. No. We don't need that shit. I'm done with that. Okay. You use your own TV money. Oh yeah. And your scholarship fund for your school, siphon some of that TV money off to actually pay for the school updates. Okay.
Yeah.
Renovate the library and the cafeteria and the science center off the damn TV money. All right. That's all I got to tell you. Okay. I think corporations will write checks because it's better tax write-offs for the corporations to do it than an individual to do it. And they can get a sponsorship. Me putting my name on a wing does nothing for me. But if I had a business that got advertising, then I've got some value in putting my name on it, and it becomes a tax write-off. That's a little different than a personal tax write-off. It makes sense. It makes 100% sense. that these schools are worried about it, but you know what? Stop building obscene palaces to athletes. Okay. You want me to donate the money? Start paying the players. Now, if you tell me all the TV money now is going back to paying the kids, and we no longer have $10 million locker rooms when the NFL is doing it with, $600,000 locker rooms, then I'm fine with that. Then you would get my money.
That I can see that side of it. I can certainly see that side.
I'm not donating when they're not going to pay the players. I'm just going to Fat Cat, big time athletic directors, or I'm paying out Gus Malzahn $24 million. Screw that. Fuck you. I'm not giving you money.
Well, see, that's the other side of this is the boosters that kind of run these programs are typically the older guys. So they have the ability to hire and fire coaches as the boosters, right? They are the ones that write the checks. They are the ones that say, hey, I know it's going to cost $21 million, but I want this guy out of here. Like, here's the check for it. You go and get it done, and then we're going to bring in a new guy. And, that's the Auburn situation is really interesting to me because obviously the boosters wanted Malzahn gone. Like, it's not that he was bad there. I mean, he went 6-4 this year, replacing like an entire defensive side of the ball. Like, I did not think that Auburn was a terrible football team this year. And I understand, like, there were 2 games that they won that they absolutely should have lost, and I understand all that. But the other side of it is he wasn't that bad, and he didn't do anything that necessarily deserved being fired, especially for the amount of money that they had to pay out. So you know that the boosters were on board with getting rid of him, and then the boosters did not have a say in who came in as the new head coach. So I'm wondering what that relationship is like between those, and is this kind of a changing of the guard? So we will eventually begin to see this more and more, but it just depends on how much schools are willing to give power to these guys that give them money.
How much the issue is, if I was a school, if I was Texas, if I was Auburn, and I was making the amount of TV money that you're bringing in, I would gladly tell those boosters to piss off.
Yeah.
I don't need your money. I want you to love Auburn. I want you to be the fan that you are. I want you to love this school. But you have to hire people and let them run it. Let them do their job.
Yeah.
Stay out of the way of what we're trying to do here. If you don't like it and they don't get results, then you can fire them later. Okay. You can stage the protest, make your voices heard, and have the school fire them later. But you have to at least let them do it and let them do it their way.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Michael said, I agree. All the money does is pad the pockets of the D-bags at the top that take advantage of the kids. Brown Yeti said, if I donated, I would make sure it went to sports that aren't making money, like softball, tennis, swimming, etc.
No, they can use that $65 million that the SEC TV is bringing in. Yeah. No. Give some of that money to the girls' softball school.
I think that it's all going to change with the NIL stuff. So, name, image, likeness, I think will change it all. I think that a lot more of these boosters and these companies and whatnot are going to start giving money directly to players as part of advertising and whatnot. So I do think
that's right.
We will see a fundamental shift.
Then you get
of the way that,
back from it.
Yeah, I think that we will see a fundamental shift of the way that money is handled in college athletics. And, all of these universities and whatnot, maybe not all, but the majority of them, at least the big ones, are greedy. They want the money. They want to be able to control everything that goes on. And I don't know how some of the old guard is going to handle it. So I'm very curious to see what ends up happening. But as of right now, like the NCAA hadn't done anything, and now we're waiting on Congress, and it's just a disaster. What a disaster the NCAA certainly is. Is there anything else that has broken that we need to discuss this morning?
No, I think we're good.
I have not seen anything pop up, so I think we're okay. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. We appreciate everybody jumping in for the morning show. Hey, last question from Ryan. What's more corrupt, the Hall of Fame voters or the NCAA? I'm going to go with the NCAA.
The Hall of Fame voters aren't corrupt. They're just pompous, arrogance pricks. I mean, it's
a big difference. Big difference.
That's just different.
And so, but But yeah, we appreciate everybody joining us for a morning edition of this. Like I said, we're going to be changing some things up over here. Make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast, because some of these shows that we do live now might end up going directly, just to the podcast. We might not go live as much, but things are a-changing. Make sure that you head over to winningcureseverything.com to keep up with everything over there. Head over to sbrpicks.com/NCAAF for our college football show and our college football content with Sportsbook Review. You can find it on YouTube. Search out SBR Picks. And Chris, I think we might be starting up a podcast with the SBR stuff. So we'll see about that. We're figuring all of these details out as the offseason continues. But do us a favor, like I said, follow us on Twitter. Go over to winningcureseverything.com. Go to sbrpicks.com/NCAAF. And Michael said, thanks for the morning show, fellas. Have a good day. Hopefully all of you have good days as well. Chris, I hope you have a fantastic day, man. I know you got some things you got to do, right?
I'm busy.
That same here. All right, let's go ahead and get out of here. You guys are great. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. And hopefully we can cash some tickets this weekend. Thanks for checking out Winning Cures Everything. If you want to keep up with us, hit subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Visit the website at winningcureseverything.com, or you can like us on Facebook or follow us at Winning Cures, at Gary WCE, or at Chris B. Giannini on Twitter. Share out the show, leave a nice review,